product provided by Nintendo for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition.
As it turns out, our Ringy friend here is a planetary engineering system. Put simply, it's a terraforming device. Though that's not the thing that bothers me. It's the fact that there is Clurian tech incorporated into its workings. Our technology borrows heavily from ancient Samar, the oldest civilization in the known universe. This led to worship, and after a few thousand years, we reached unparalleled levels of prosperity. Our ancestors sought to spread our faith across the galaxy, preaching to other races and sharing our tech. The alien civilization who made this ring, they must have been one of those races. Ironic that a tool meant to facilitate life was ultimately used to destroy it.
Xenoblade Genesis is filled with interesting Xenoblade X references. No joke, the more I watch this trailer, the more I find. And they're in the weirdest places too. So in today's video, let's break down these interesting connections and point out some extremely fascinating discoveries hidden in plain sight. Hello everybody, it's your boy Jmulls, and let's talk cosmo-archaeology. In the Xenoblade Genesis trailer, there is this weird ring-like structure. Very early in the trailer, by the way, it's like the 12-second mark. And almost immediately, I had people telling me, oh, this might be the ring we found out in Oblivia. Maybe there's some kind of connection there. Now, I don't believe this is the ring or anything like the ring out in Oblivia, but I do think it's from Xenoblade X. This is where we start to go down a rabbit hole unlike any other. Because this frame right here is hiding so much in plain sight. They do this a lot in the Xenoblade Genesis trailer, where there is something in the foreground meant to take your interest. Your eyes are supposed to gravitate to the giant ring, and then you ignore the giant, sewage factory, whatever it is in the background here, feature complete with piping that goes into the water supply here. We'll get into that bit a little bit later. Let's address the ring here. I just want to give you a snippet of where we're gonna go. So this ring-like structure, the reason I don't think it's the same one from Oblivia is because it looks way too different. The one out in Oblivia, as we can see right here, the one out in Oblivia looks way more techy. There's little bits and bobs everywhere, circles just dotting its circumference and all that. It looks like a machine that was built, right? And in the Nail quest in Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, Nail reveals that it's a terraforming device. It is some ancient structure from some alien civilization. Put this ring here, ideally into what she believes, to terraform this planet to whatever they wanted it to be. Now, granted, the fact that it's in Oblivia probably means it didn't really pan out that well for them, but that's the idea behind the ring. It's this terraforming structure. And while sure, the landscape here is very green, there's a bunch of wildlife and all that, the ring itself just doesn't look like it. But funnily enough, this isn't the only time in this trailer that we actually see this ring structure. Heck, one of the first shots of the trailer, actually I do think it is the first shot, it is. If you look to the top right here, this kind of looks like it'd be related to that ring structure, right? Maybe it's not the same thing, but it looks kind of similar. But what if I told you that there is another confirmed sighting of that ring structure in this trailer? We go to the final shot of the Xenoblade Genesis trailer. You know, the one we have Eleanor and the guy whose name we still don't have riding off to these weird ruins on this cliffside, and the camera pans up to reveal the curved world, and look out over to the left there. Why, hello there. This right here, this entire scene, that bridge right there, that sewer facility or just factory or whatever this is that has piping going into the water supply, again, we'll get to this, that's the same shot from here. And we can confirm this by looking at some landmarks. One, the rings, but still, you have the bridge right here. You have the factory thing, for lack of a better name, with the tubing going into the water supply. And you also have this little outcropping of land right here, jutting into the water. And then here you have the exact same bridge. So the camera would be around here from the 12-second in part of the trailer. There's the bridge. Here are the rings, here's the piping into the water, and here's the outcropping of land right here. So that earlier scene in the trailer takes place right around here. So we can see, yeah, one, there's a whole lot of different rings here, and it kind of spans the entire length of this area here. Pause. But there's a lot of them, and the tops of them look very smooth. They don't really look like they're made out of a bunch of factory-like machinery, right? They're very smooth and almost natural looking, but unnatural in the same way. And we also see bits that start to poke out of the water all the way over here along the coastline as well. You can even see some going down the left-hand side of the screen here. They are clearly something different to the ring out in Oblivia. And I know that might be a little bit disappointing because seeing another terraforming ring would be really cool to see. I hope we do see it at some point in the future. But I did mention early in this video, we did see these rings before in Xenoblade X. Let's head into the game. We are in the zone known as Sylvalum in Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and we go to the northern part of the map of Sylvalum, right by the Banshee Cave. Let's fly a bit in our flying scale, and you might already see what I'm referring to here. Now, I have seen people point this out since the release of the trailer, that there are parts of the Xenoblade Genesis trailer that look a lot like Sylvalum. I assume people are referring to this. There's also like one other bit that looks a lot like it's from Sylvalum as well. We'll get into that. But like, we have these like outcroppings of rock that look very smooth on the top of them, seemingly come out of the ocean as well here. Some are broken, some are jagged, and we see some connections between these various rings. They look rather odd, don't they? And it's kind of interesting how we see something that is rather similar in the Xenoblade Genesis. Now, they're not exactly like one for one or something, but they look rather similar, especially with how different the art style is going from like Blade X to Genesis. It's rather interesting. It's a head scratcher, right? Now, what's the significance of this? Who knows? We kind of need a little bit more than just one trailer to go off of, but it's an interesting observation, and there's something else alongside this. Now, for lack of a better name, like these ring-like structures, they're not just in the northern corner of Sylvalum. They're like everywhere in this zone. Even in like the southern portions, they're like everywhere on the perimeter. You can see them all around here. They're just a natural part of this landscape here. Heck, there's one that's even like fully connected over here. Now, there is another bit of the Xenoblade Genesis trailer that does remind me of this area of Sylvalum specifically, like these raised platforms with these long land bridges. Now, granted, it's not one for one or anything, but it does kind of remind me of this bit up here. The very long, like, land bridge. Even the triangular shape here is a little bit preserved, even if there's just giant chunks missing. Almost as if this is beginning to form into some structure like this. Or they just took some creative inspiration from how some structures in Sylvalum look to construct that bit in the Xenoblade Genesis trailer. I kind of lean more towards that one. I find it rather interesting because there is a rather large plot point, chapter 13, where when we're trying to conduct Project Exodus again and create the White Will 2 and get us and our allies off of Mira before the ghosts just end up destroying it, there's an entire plot thread where we essentially are trying to take Mira with us in order to preserve its legacy, to preserve the wildlife, to preserve that world, kind of like how we managed to preserve humanity by basically uploading it to the cloud. And then it just turned out we uploaded it to the wrong cloud server, and well, it was still preserved. We still had access to it, just through different means than we originally thought. So if this game is a follow-up to all of that, maybe that could explain why the world kind of resembles Xenoblade X's Mira to some degree. Maybe just outside of the connection to, you know, Perfect Works with Xenogears, and chapter 2 being Genesis, maybe there's some connection to that with Xenoblade X kind of mirroring the Book of Exodus, you know, with Project Exodus and all that, and now we have Xenoblade Genesis. After all, in the Bible, it goes to Book of Genesis, then it goes to Book of Exodus, in that order. So maybe they're playing on that in reverse order here. Maybe the next game is going to be called Xenoblade Leviticus, who knows? Again, just an interesting observation, something to keep in the back of our minds as we get more trailers and more information as time goes on. I just find it really fun to, like, find these elements and point them out. In the Xenoblade Genesis trailer, we go back to that bit at the end of the trailer, where they do the title reveal for Xenoblade Genesis, right? Now, we've already established a connection to these rings to Sylvalum. Perhaps a bit coincidental, but a connection nonetheless. What's rather interesting is that in the same shot, in the top right corner of the screen, we have a lava island. Now, in all of Xenoblade, I can only think of one zone that is an upfront, massive, this is supposed to be the lava zone for the game. I can only really think of one, and it's in Xenoblade Chronicles X. Funnily enough, right next to these ring-like structures, you can see it in the distance. It's called Cauldros. It's right there. We can see it from here. That's how close it is to the ring-like structure we're talking about from Sylvalum. They can actually also kind of find elsewhere in Sylvalum as well, like one of the main elements of Sylvalum. But still, there's the lava zone right there. And even the coloration of the zone, yeah, it's a lava zone to be fair, but like even the coloration of this zone reminds me a lot of this island right here. But the other striking element of of this island is how unnatural it looks, right? Like the way the lava's flowing, like there's just a circle right over here. That circle is really perfect. Two circular like pits right next to each other. The way this lava is flowing, it almost looks artificial. And also, funnily enough, surrounding it, we have more of the rings. Granted, they're very small here and they're kind of hard to see, but you can see them. They're right here and they are curving up and like into the island itself. What does this all represent? What does it symbolize? We don't know anything for certain here. We can make guesses. We can make educated guesses. And also, shoutouts to Monolith here for a trailer that's only 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. There is so much in this trailer. It's very dense. And one of the things they love to do in this trailer is to hide things in plain sight. Have something eye-catchy in the foreground that draws your eye and draws your attention, and then hide some massive detail in the background. They do it a lot throughout this trailer. Like even here, everything we've been talking about here is kind of just background for the title reveal for the game here. So all of this stuff is very missable, but I don't know, I just find it so dang cool. Makes me really excited to get into the game and eventually get flying and just explore everything, you know? Just find out what other secrets are hidden in plain sight. Speaking of, by the way, let's finally talk about this thing, because what the... Genuinely, what are you? Okay, let's zoom in and enhance this. There is something weird going on with the world of Xenoblade Genesis. We kind of expected that to be the case, you know, especially after we saw the giant spaceship here, at least what looks like a giant spaceship. Again, using the dragon in the foreground to like distract the eye. You're not gonna get me though, Monolith. But we also just have this very weird facility over here that's clearly not natural, right? I mean, just look at it. It's circular in nature and it has a bunch of pipe work, like whether the water pipes, ventilation, there's something. They're going down, they're curved down right into the water supply. That's clearly intentional, it's clearly artificial. So like, what are they? Were they created somehow by the people of Anshaw, the name they're giving the world of Xenoblade Genesis? And maybe they're just further along technologically than we kind of were led on to believe. Is it somehow maybe a remnant of the giant spaceship from early in the trailer? And maybe when this thing crashed into the planet or pierced through its depths, maybe somehow it like broke apart and part of it just winded up over there. Maybe there was some kind of terraforming effort done to this world by the same people who built and constructed that terraforming ring out in Oblivia in Xenoblade Chronicles X, and maybe elsewhere in this game, yet to be revealed, there is one of those Oblivia rings and it successfully terraformed this world to look very much, or at least in a way, resemble Mira. That kind of supposes that Xenoblade Genesis is a sequel and a follow-up to everything. Maybe it's a giant prequel, and the society that rises either after the events of this game or some ancient civilization like ancient Samar or one of the offshoot civilizations that came about because of ancient Samar and their influence. Maybe they took inspiration from the world of Anshaw, found their way to Mira, and then terraformed it in such a way to resemble this place. I kind of don't buy that one personally myself, but like that's an option to consider at least. But again, there's a lot to think about when it comes to this trailer, and the Xenoblade X comparisons don't stop there, because who was the character we surrounded ourselves with, we paired up with in Xenoblade X when we learned about the ring out in Oblivia? It was Nail's Affinity mission. It was her first Affinity mission. And what if I told you there's a couple of weird references and elements taken from her character design that we can find in the Xenoblade Genesis trailer? Buckle up, people. Welcome to the other big part of this video. This 3-second spurt in this trailer is filled to the brim with information and references. It's so dense. It feels like one of those TikTok videos where you keep on scrolling through the art and there's always just like another scene. Let's start with her. We don't know her name. I'm gonna call her Emo Girl or My Chemical Romance. Like one of the two really works here. This character is really interesting because she looks so different to everyone else in this trailer besides like the elf ears. But there's something about her face. These markings right here. Again, I'm pretty sure other people have pointed this out, to be fair. Like, it's still really interesting to talk about here. These face markings look very reminiscent and similar, shockingly so, to Nail here. Let's zoom in on her face here. We can see the same pattern. Girl, stop moving. We can see the same pattern, the same marking. Stop moving, girl. What are we doing? But yeah, see, it's like not one for one, but it's a very similar shape to what we see on Emo Girl here. And it's way too similar for comfort. Now, she's clearly not Clarion like Neil Nail. For those who don't know, Neil Nail's a character from Xenoblade X, and the race of her people are called the Clarions. While her ears are pointed, they're way more furry than what we see with this character. But the markings are weird. But on top of that, let's look at her hair here. We have these diamond-shaped little gemstones that she has like here and also over here. You could argue maybe these are the same kinds of gemstones as well. But what if I told you we see very similar gemstones on Neil Nail? Okay, calm yourselves. We have to look at like Neil Nail's thigh here. And on her holster, she has these markings. What is that right there? Now, a diamond is a rather, common shape, right? So like by itself, this amounts to like nothing. But it's really interesting how for a character we've already established a connection with Neil Nail too, because of the face markings, we also have a similar shape with a gemstone here that we can also find on Neil Nail. Granted, these aren't actually gems, they're like carved into this like holster she has, but we're getting a bunch of interesting coincidences that are starting to add up with each other. Now, mind you, that's not the only connection to Neil Nail's character design that we see in the 3-second spurt in the trailer. Now, let's let the trailer play, and this scene, the immediate next one. There's a lot to go over with just this frame alone. To keep this focused, let's stick with Neil Nail for right now. We go to this nun or like priest-like character over here, and we look at their collar and the pattern we see woven into their garments, onto the collar here, and onto this sash-like thing. We have circles connected with these straight lines. Now, this is very coincidental and could just be nothing, but it is interesting with all the other Neil Nail connections we've established so far, because we go back to Neil Nail's character, by the way, and just for clarity, I only have Neil's bodywear series on her, so this is her outfit. Just like ignore the little thing she has in her hair. Like just ignore this thing. But we go back to Neil Nail's character and look at her collar again. Very similar pattern, isn't it? It's not identical one for one, because over here we also have this weird like hit marker looking thing here, and there's some lines that go away from the center and just go off in their own direction, like this one right here. But we're starting to get a lot of little similarities to Neil Nail's character design in this trailer. A bunch of small things are adding up with each other. Now, I did say this scene was going to be dense. There's a lot more to go over here, not necessarily related to Xenoblade X, but interesting observations. This guy might be the Jin/Saitan for the game. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, Monolith loves to have this one character in each of their games that is this cool, calm, collected swordsman character. It's one of their favorite archetypes to just use. In Xenogears, you had a character called Saitan. In Xenosaga, you had Jin Uzuki. Funnily enough, won't be the only time we have a Jin in this list. Xenoblade 1, we had Dunban. Xenoblade 2, we had regular Jin, or emo Jin, however you want to call him. In Xenoblade X, we had Nagi. Does Noah count for Xenoblade 3, or is it Ethel or Kamaravi? That one's a thinker. But besides that, Monolith loves to have that like archetype of character. I think this guy is going to be that. I mean, look at him. We've already kind of established some parallels before in previous videos to this guy with like Fei Fong Wong from Xenogears, mainly just because of this giant cowlick going down the front of his head here, and this guy has the same hair bit. But also for quite a few of the Jin characters, when it comes to the aesthetic of the character, this isn't like something they do all the time, but more often than not, they like to associate that character with very distinct, almost Japanese-esque clothing. I'm pretty sure it's Japanese, could just be like East Asian. And if you look at the actual outfit, we might not be able to get the color scheme here, but we can see like this knot, and I'm not too like well versed in that subject matter in particular, but it looks very East Asian to me. You have like the flowery imagery here. This guy feels like he's gonna like fit that bill. But then again, that's not the only thing to go over for this trailer. Not even just this trailer, this one scene in particular. One of the big theories going around for the world of Xenoblade Genesis is that it operates like a Dyson sphere. Let's get into that one right now.
We will meet at the world's end.
So what even is a Dyson sphere? They look pretty cool, don't they? Well, according to Wikipedia, it says a Dyson sphere is a hypothetical megastructure that encompasses a star and captures a large percentage of its power output. The concept is a thought experiment that attempts to imagine how a spacefaring civilization would meet its energy requirements once those requirements exceed what can be generated from the home planet's resources alone. And then you go to Google Images, you can find a whole bunch of images trying to represent what it could look like. This one in particular is kind of interesting to me because note the triangular structure here. Just save that for later. So the idea, according to some people, because they advertise the world of Anshar is this land warmed by the light of six suns, when you look at the world of Anshar itself, it's on the inside of this geometrical structure. And seemingly at the center of all of this, like all of this is centered around these six suns. I highly doubt these are actual stars, by the way. They're probably just calling them six suns because we'll look at them, but still. It's like concept-wise, it does kind of feel reminiscent to, well, a Dyson sphere. You have the world on the inside of this geometrical construct, and it's basically being powered by these six suns because those are the suns for this world. That's what's giving them light. And yeah, sure, there's some like weird little things going on with this trailer and this scene in particular, like this squared off corner right here as well that you can see in the night sky here. Like that's very weird. And you kind of see like some kind of hard line forming in a circular pattern up over there. You see some red goo or red ooze, red like mist going on over here. And we can also see what I imagine is land or more of those rings from Sylvalum over here. But like I said, the theory for this world, according to some people, is that the world of Anshar is a Dyson sphere, or at least analogous to a Dyson sphere. You have this world constructed around these six suns, and if you want to be picky and say you have to have a spacefaring civilization, well, we got a spaceship right here. So like maybe something happened that led us to where Xenoblade Genesis is going to take place, and the state of the world as it is right now almost certainly going to be the case. But then the funny thing is we go back to this scene, right? Tying it all back together here. We look back to that nun/priest person and we go up to this staff here, and what is this? Is this maybe analogous to the world of Anshar itself? It looks very weird because if you were just gonna have the staff glow with like a mystical power, you would imagine it would just glow, right? Why is there some weird structure surrounding the glow here? That's rather odd, isn't it? Because when you look at this by itself, you remove the fact that it's a part of the staff. If you just look at this bit by itself, if you threw that onto Google Images and said that's a Dyson sphere, it would look like it belongs there. Maybe one of the things they could play off of is that the religion or faith or whatever these people are supposed to represent might understand the state of the world or just the way the world functions originally as intended, and it's part of their faith. And they're able to showcase it here with like a miniaturized version of how Anshar actually operates and looks from an outside perspective. Maybe not. Again, this is one frame from a 2.5-minute long trailer. We need way more to go off of, but an interesting thing just to keep in the back of your mind as we get more information down the line. Maybe we get more information to support this hypothesis. Maybe we just get information that completely discredits it. Just again, something to keep in the back of your mind here. Oh, by the way, another thing I just noticed. Remember how we talked about these like rings connected with lines to each other, and we made that parallel to the collar on Neil Nail? Well, if you take a closer look at the staff here, and you might have to really look at this because it's kind of hard to see, especially if your monitor is small, but you can see the same pattern along this circular part of the staff here. Circles connected with straight lines. So it seems to be an important piece of imagery they're trying to invoke or utilize for whatever group or sect this type of person is associated with. Again, just something interesting to keep in the back of our minds. And then before we move on, I have to break the 3-second rule for this trailer, but like note the interesting knot here, because we see something like this again later in the trailer, and only a few seconds after this actually. We go ahead by like 4 seconds, and it was so quick we missed it there. I have to go back actually. And you have this cool like ninja lady, right? We get to like the legit last frame-ish that's possible to see this character on, like right here, and going down the pant leg, you see a very similar knot here. So like maybe this character that Eleanor is fighting here is associated with this Jin Saitan-like character. I don't know if the knot is 1-for-1, but it looks very similar to me, right? So there's probably a connection there. Also, this isn't really relevant, but you can actually see another character right over here, and you can only see him in like the last like 2 to 3 frames of this part of the trailer. Nothing to really go off of when it comes to that, just, I don't know, I wonder who this is. Now, this Furby abomination from hell itself aside, there's something about the scene he's in that's very interesting, and it's actually not this guy. This is truly a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. Bit of a frequent element when it comes to this entire trailer, but if we frame by frame this and we go back to the beginning of this scene, you'll start to see somebody on the left-hand side of the screen here. Keep going, keep going, keep going, and we already have quite a bit of somebody here, and it's very clear here. I'm not joking. We have like 2 frames where this guy or whoever this is actually visible and doesn't look like a blurry mess like this. But if we head to this frame specifically, we can make out a lot of detail here. Now, I don't think we have seen this character anywhere else in the trailer. I looked, maybe I missed them, but I don't remember seeing anybody with like hand wrappings on, well, the hand and the forearm. I don't remember seeing anyone with legs like that, pause. But I especially don't recall anyone with a sword like this. But this sword is very interesting. We can make out a few different elements to it artistically here. Let me grab my webcam and drag myself over here. Near the god of the blade, we have these like arrows pointing down in this direction. And we also see those arrows somewhere else in the blade, right over here. Now we can't see the other half of it, but considering like it's folded over the edge of the blade, can't imagine we only have the black marking on this side, it's just nothing on the other side. Makes sense, it's wrapped around the blade there. Then around the handle, we got like these brass knuckle, like sharp, jagged god right here. It looks pretty cool to me. And then the blade continues to flow off screen here. Then if we advance the scene a bit, we can see a little bit more of the blade there, and it's a very curved blade. It's not a straight sword or anything like that. We can also see more of the arrow markings right here. Then there's some kind of interesting reddish circle element here, and it's being encased in these black lines, almost like, in a way, a possible illustration for a Dyson Sphere. Now that's probably overthinking it, but still, it's an interestingly designed blade here. And there's also one other element that's rather interesting, this circular element right here. Now, in the context of the world of Xenoblade Genesis, I think more than likely that's the place for the Anne stone to go, but I mean, Xenoblade is kind of known for having weapons where there's a circular just hole and around this part of the weapon. And look, I'm just saying, it does kind of remind me of Malice's sword here. Obviously, it looks very different, but like in terms of the color scheme, Malice's sword also having the circular element there. Again, the overall color scheme, it does look oddly similar. Like in a way that feels like it's supposed to harken back to Malos designs and aesthetics. Even if it's not supposed to be necessarily connected to him literally. Personally, it reminds me a lot if you try to make like Nia's sword that you could get when she got her blade form, do like a DBZ fusion or something with a Malice design for a sword. Again, what this represents, what it's going to mean when we get to the game itself, impossible to tell right now. I just think it's a rather interesting design. Just a few things to keep in the back of our minds as we get more information. Haven't really heard or seen anyone talk about it yet. I just think it's pretty cool. And then on the Furby from Hell itself, we have its little sigil here. Now, it's kind of hard to make it out, especially when the subtitles are kind of in the way, but it reminds me quite a bit of like the logo from the church, not church, but the Academy of Lukos, that like cross that we talked about yesterday, a couple days ago. It kind of reminds me of that, but if you just threw a dragon head at the top here as well, it'll be interesting to get a more clear picture about what this thing is and what's supposed to represent, especially if this is supposed to be like a no-pun for the game or a no-pun replacement. I don't know, I miss my no-pun, you know. He's gonna have to do a lot to impress me. Man, whenever we get around to getting that second trailer, it's going to hit me like a double spinning edge. It's really something where every time I watch this trailer, I just discover something new about it. Makes me excited to actually get my hands on with this game and just sink my teeth into it, you know? So here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with your own thoughts and also your theories for what's going to happen with Xenoblade Genesis. I want your best theories and I want your wackiest, craziest theories. Leave them in the comments down below and I may react to them in a future video. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Join the Discord in the description, follow me on Twitter, and all the social medias down there. And come on, you know I had to get it out of my system. I went crazy with this one, people. It's the giant Malos theory. There might be some connections already in Genesis to Malos, so let's explore them together. Want to find out more? Check out this video right here. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!